Last episode, I ended on a promise. Those tasks worked for reasons, the reasons have names, and I said the science of them was older than this industry. One correction to my own promise first. The science is not older, and the papers run from 1980 to 1993. What is older is what they were looking at: tailors in Liberia, violinists in Berlin, chess players, and children learning to read. Not one of those researchers was looking at us. For mechanisms out of that work describe what a junior engineer's first years consisted of. Then one more, written inside this field. Nobody applied them. The Q implemented them anyway. 1991, Jean Lave and Etienne Wenger, situated learning, and the idea is legitimate peripheral participation, where both adjectives are load-bearing. Legitimate means the work is real, it ships, and somebody would notice if it did not. Peripheral means you sit at the edge of the practice, where the blast radius is small. The misreading is that peripheral means easy tasks for beginners, and they say close to the opposite. There may very well be no such thing, they write, as an illegitimate peripheral participant. There is one practice, and a position in it. Two more things from that book matter more. Lave and Wenger draw a fundamental distinction between learning and intentional instruction, and say learning of this kind happens whether or not anybody set out to teach. An apprenticeship nobody designed is not a paradox in that frame, it is the ordinary case. The second thing is a refusal. They warn against giving the concept prescriptive value, or proposing ways of operationalizing it. The people who named it declined to turn it into a method, and I will hold that line. The next one builds a method, and it names the part everybody forgets. 1989, Alan Collins, John Seeley Brown and Susan Newman, Cognitive Apprenticeship. Modeling is watching somebody competent work with their reasoning out loud. Coaching is the thread through all of it: hints, feedback, what you do next. Scaffolding, in their words, refers to the supports the teacher provides to help the student carry out a task. Fading, in the same paper, consists of the gradual removal of supports until students are on their own. Two of them said it plainly 2 years later that traditional apprenticeship has 4 important aspects: modeling, scaffolding, fading, and coaching. A support that never fades is not teaching. It is a permanent prosthetic, and that matters later. One word has to come into the open, because I have used it differently. The first series ended on stand on the rock, not the scaffolding. Scaffolding there meant every practice you have been taught, the stand-up, the ticket, the test pyramid, the thing that changes while the problems stay put. In learning science, scaffolding means support that is deliberately removed, and both uses are correct. One is about what is temporary in the work, the other about what is temporary in the help. In this series I mean the help, and that is the only time I will draw that line. Now the mechanism that gives me the most trouble. 1993, Anders Ericsson, Ralph Kramp and Clemens Teschromer, in Psychological Review, introducing deliberate practice. The definition is narrow, and it means activities specially designed to improve the current level of performance, aimed at a particular weakness, with immediate informative feedback repeated. In the absence of adequate feedback, they write, efficient learning is impossible. Then they separate it from work, and are blunt about work. The costs of mistakes and missed deadlines discourage learning, and work activities, they write, offer some opportunities for learning but are far from optimal. So a paper I am using to explain why the grunt work worked says grunt work is a poor way to learn, and I will not smooth it. The resolution is one word: feedback. When production work does hand you a task at the edge of your ability, with real stakes on it, it still withholds the thing that turns either of those into skill, somebody telling you exactly what you got wrong while you can still feel the decision. The junior Q had that bolted on by accident, and the reviewer was the feedback. That is why those tasks worked, and why the same tasks done alone do not. The fourth tells you where all this is going. 1980, Stewart and Hubert Dreyfus, a technical report for the Air Force, 5 stages of skill acquisition. They are named novice, competence, proficiency, expertise, and mastery. 2 things in it matter, and the first is where the rules stop. Up to expertise, the performer needed some analytical principle, a rule, a guideline or a maxim, to connect a grasp of the situation to a specific action. Past that point, the situation itself dictates the action. That is the destination, and here it is the 7 problems from the first series. Seniority is not more rules, it is the point where rules run out and judgment carries the load. The second thing is that expertise is the fourth stage of 5. One more, written inside this field, aired once in the first series. 1985, Peter Knorr, Programming as Theory Building. His claim is that what a programmer builds is a theory of how the problem maps onto the machine, and the theory lives in people. For a new programmer to come to possess an existing theory of a program, he writes, it is insufficient that he or she has the opportunity to become familiar with the program text and other documentation. What is required is working contact with the people who already have it. He compares it to learning an instrument and says the most important educational activity is the students doing the relevant things under suitable supervision and guidance. Run 1 year through that, and this is the series' own worked example, not a measurement of anybody. The Teens Tech Lead, 2016, the 3 tasks on the record, the on-call rotation, the review queue, the migration nobody wanted. The rotation is legitimate peripheral participation with the dial set precisely, real pages, real consequences, a senior on the path. The escalation path is fading, and nobody ever called it that. Early on you escalated everything, by the end only what you should, and nobody noticed the curve. The review queue was the feedback channel, specific corrections attached to decision still warm. The migration was the edge of ability, a task nobody there could do at the start, including whoever finished it. Now the part that keeps this honest, because a list of mechanisms reads like a golden age, and it was not. Every mechanism was there by luck. The fading curve worked if your team escalated well, and failed quietly if it did not. The feedback channel was a lottery on who reviewed you, and nobody measured whether it landed. Nothing was diagnosed, which the cognitive apprenticeship account requires. Lave and Wenger's refusal stands over all of it. Naming the mechanism explains why the thing worked, but it does not tell you how to rebuild it, and that bill comes due much later in this series. So, the self-check, still a watch this. Take the last 20 tasks you finished, and mark each for 3 things, whether it carried real consequences, whether anybody gave you feedback, and whether it was past what you could do. Count the ones that scored all 3. That count, out of 20, is your formation rate, and for most of us it is uncomfortable. The artifact is the learning mechanism map, linked below, the mechanisms against the tasks that implemented them. You will know it worked when you stop calling the boring work boring, and start asking which of the 3 it is missing. Next episode, the obvious question. Other professions lost their accidental path, and the ones that came through built a deliberate one on purpose.